So 225, one of the first reading endeavors you are going to undertake here is going to be here with the SCP textbook. And here in the beginning of chapter 3 is light and exposure and an exploration of sensors and pixels. What I would like to do is help you frame what we are going to do for the rest of the class in the form of a question. And that question is, what really is a photo? We all of us, I think, have kind of a deeply ingrained idea of what it is that we think a photo is. A photo is a snapshot, right? We use those words interchangeably. A photo is a snapshot, a way to document an instant that we were able to witness and observe, and it's also a way for us to be able to distribute essentially shared access, right, to the instant I was able to snap a picture of with my camera. And that is maybe the truth, but it's really only a part of the story. Going back as far as we have had cameras, we have had the ability to go in and using what photographers know about things like white balance and exposure and compensation for light and everything else, and what we know about shutter speed and the size of the aperture, the distance, the angle that the subject is from the camera, all of those things. We have honestly, I think, pretty intuitively built the art and the science of photography around what we know by observation with just our own eyes. And something that I think a beginning photographer is well served to start to question is, what is a photograph? Here, and again, this is why I really dig the SCP textbook, is we get a very experienced photographer's so you can read into that old person. As a fellow old person myself, I find that that's sometimes a shorthand that really describes what's happening here. But what we see is an experienced photographer's perspective of how that has changed over time, how the idea of a camera has changed over time from film to digital. Just the mechanics of a camera have changed over time, from single fixed lenses to multiple lenses on cameras to interchangeable lenses on cameras, etc. What we do to develop those images, what we do to manage those images, and you can feel that. At least I think you can. You can feel that experience here in chapter 3 when we're starting to talk about light and exposure. And this is where they ask the question, what is a photo? And honestly, a photo is simply a camera's interpretation of that moment in time. For all of you who have had more than one phone or more than one camera, in order to actually take pictures with, what you have probably intuitively noticed is between those two cameras there is a difference in the way that they interpret light, how red looks, how white looks, how blue looks, given a very, very similar situation and using the two cameras. I will tell you, I am, just for ease of use, I am using here an iPhone 11, I believe, an iPhone 11. Let's just say that's right, as my camera, because it was the one that was literally available, and did not complain my setup, or did not rather force my setup to complain. And the difference between that iPhone 11 and this iPhone 15 was substantial. It was so substantial, in fact, that when the iPhone 15 was in my pocket and I set it up here, That's right here. I set it up here to be my camera for this particular video, despite the fact that the lighting in here is the same. So fixed lights with fixed colors, despite the fact that I am sitting exactly the same distance between the camera and my chair that's fixed. It's literally bolted to a table. Those things are the same, but the color interpretation between the two of them was different. I did not want to go through the experience of dialing back in the white balance. Honestly, you can do a lot if you just learn to dial in your white balance where you want it to be. That is part of the session's toolkit for you. If you can really dial in the white balance, you kind of can stop messing around with everything else. I don't really have to worry about any post-production stuff. I will save this conversation for another time. Let's just talk about what Eric started off talking about, which was what is a photo. So even between two iPhones separated by 4 years, they interpret colors differently. I just want you, while you are exploring this, to please set aside a few minutes to listen to a podcast I have set aside for you here. I'm going to go grab it now. So here we go. This is the podcast. This is from a well-known internet publication, so a blog, called The Verge. I like these because they are agnostic as far as the platform goes. We have people here. You can see here behind me, the upper right-hand corner, that is a Sony camera. The lower left-hand corner, that is, it looks to me like an iPhone. The other corner there, that's either a Sony or a Canon. So they're agnostic when it comes to how it is that they even do their video. And there's actually some really great comparisons that I will put in here. But this conversation is just a way to interpret, a way to hear a secondary opinion on what is a photo. When we are editing photos, we will see Photopia, which is a free online tool, very, very shortly here, as a matter of fact. We will see a couple of other tools that we can use to manage this. But we'll see that when you as a photographer go back through to edit your photo, what you are doing is you are changing the reality of the situation under which you took the photo. I don't like the color of the sky here. I'm going to change it. That's because there's a difference in opinion between the camera that took the picture and you, who is either remembering the scene or who wants to enhance the scene. That's perfectly okay. That is your prerogative as the photographer. Great, change it. When we go through and we change the perspective. So sometimes, like if we have the horizon line is just slightly off, it makes the picture less high quality. So we change the horizon line to be straight. Now what I have done is I have changed the perspective under which the photo was shot. The color of the sky, like I said, is the wrong color blue. Let's change that. The camera blew out some of the highlights that we wanted or crushed some of the shadows. So there's not really that range that we want to show. So like having a shadow shows depth, and cameras are really good at trying to preserve detail across the entire image. So they crush shadows out. Great, let's go back there and let's fix that. As long as we have the white balance in there pretty good, it's pretty easy to retain some of those shadows from there. Now what we've done again is we have changed the camera's interpretation. We are basing it off of the photographer's interpretation, and we are changing what that photo is. A photo is not a snapshot of a moment in time. It is an interpretation of a moment in time. So, to that end, let's please stop worrying about, or at least get on the road to stop worrying about. I understand you cannot just shut this off, but let's stop worrying about, what the camera is. How many megapixels doesn't matter. Let's stop worrying about who the manufacturer is. Samsung, Sony, Apple, Nikon. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. when we communicate what we want to communicate to our audience, that image that we use to communicate is an interpretation of a moment in time. And that is all the more that it is. So if you have gone through and enhanced the color, I want this to be more vibrant. Fantastic. Vibrance away. If you want to go in and reduce the sharpening, great. Let's go ahead and do that. If you want to go in and add a vignette, go ahead and do that. If you have a a particular LUT, we'll talk about LUTs, not this session actually, but next session. If you have a particular LUT that you want to use for things, great. That is communicating in the style that you want to communicate, and that is perfectly okay. So for those of you who, and this is all of us, I still do this with my photos all the time. We go through there and we judge the image the way we see it in a camera roll. We judge the image the way we see it in Bridge or in any of the software we'll see to help us manage our image libraries. When we see it there, we're going to say to ourselves, that's not the way I remember it. No, it's not the way you remember it, because you are not the media with which the image was taken. The camera is. Let's take that image, let's remove any thought or any guilt or any stigma against changing that image so that we can produce and communicate with the photo that we want. And again, in the SCP textbook, I think you can really see the development arc that this goes through. You can really see, okay, this is like the physics, the honest physics of how an image is taken. You can really see what we can do with, okay, what does it mean to have a certain resolution? What does it mean to be able to, communicate between you and the editing software, the needs that you have for that image. So I'm going to leave a link to two things. I'm going to leave a link to this article, which I will admit to you is a year or so old. I'm actually not sure. Let's just call this an older article based on a single phone. That's okay. The question around what is an image is really well defined here. The image is what the photographer and the camera and the editing software determine it is. And then here, I do believe it's only like a 10-minute short clip of this much longer conversation. Give this one a listen and just hear the way that people who use cameras for a living, whether or not they are photographers, I see behind me here 3 authors, but I will tell you, as anybody who does authoring for things on the internet, you're now a photographer too. So, like you've been knighted. Listen to how it is that they understand and have seen the progression of, a photo is not it's not like set in stone. Let's see how it changed and changes over time, and even a short amount of time between when the photographer and the camera take the picture and when the photographer and the editing software change that picture. So give it a read, give it a listen, and do yourself a favor maybe and let go of the idea of a photograph.